In a peaceful, ancient village, nestled away from the world, lived a young weaver named Elara. Her hands were magic, turning simple threads into breathtaking tapestries. It was said that every thread she wove held a memory, a dream, or a whisper of hope. Her creations weren't just cloth. They were the very soul of the village, capturing its spirit in vibrant color and intricate design. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across her loom, Elara was working on her masterpiece, a grand tapestry depicting the village's entire history. She reached for the most important thread of all, the thread of unity, which had been passed down through generations. But as she wove it into the fabric, a sudden, sharp sound echoed in the quiet room. The thread had snapped. A wave of unease rippled through the village almost immediately. It started small. Neighbors who had shared bread for years began to argue over fences. Old friends looked at each other with suspicion. Laughter grew quiet, replaced by muttered complaints and misunderstandings. The harmony that had defined their lives was unraveling, just like the broken thread in Elara's tapestry. The panic was a quiet, creeping thing, but it was real. The village was losing its way. Heartbroken and feeling the weight of her community's discord, Elara knew she had to do something. She remembered the old tales, the whispers of a legendary artifact, the golden spindle. It was said this spindle possessed the power to mend any broken thread, no matter how precious. With a determined heart, she packed a small bag, gave one last look at her unfinished tapestry, and set off on a quest to find it. Her journey would be long and perilous, but the hope of restoring her home spurred her onward. Elara's path led her away from the familiar comfort of her village and into the great unknown. First, she entered the Whispering Woods, a mystical forest where the trees were ancient and their leaves hummed with secrets. Sunlight struggled to pierce the dense canopy, and every rustle and snap of a twig felt like a test. Here, she met an old spirit of the forest, a being made of moss and memory. The spirit offered her cryptic advice. The strongest threads are not found, but forged. Elara pondered these words as she continued her journey. Next, she faced the sky-piercing peaks, a range of towering mountains that scraped the clouds. The climb was grueling. The air grew thin, and the winds howled like mournful ghosts. This was a trial of courage. There were moments she wanted to turn back, when her muscles screamed and fear gnawed at her resolve. But the image of her fractured village pushed her forward, one difficult step at a time. She learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the will to keep going despite it. After conquering the mountains, she came to the shimmering river, its waters so clear they reflected the sky like a perfect mirror. That the river was wide and its current deceptively strong. To cross, she had to build a raft, a task that required immense patience. She spent days gathering fallen branches, carefully lashing them together. This trial taught her that haste leads to ruin, and that some challenges demand slow, steady perseverance. Along her way, she encountered others in need and offered her help, sharing her food and her warmth. These acts of empathy connected her to the world in a new way. She was starting to understand the spirit's riddles, the mountain's challenge, the river's lesson. They weren't just obstacles. They were teaching her that true strength, true unity, doesn't come from a single magical thread. It comes from the countless smaller threads of connection we weave with one another through shared experiences, understanding, and mutual respect. The golden spindle wasn't a physical object out there somewhere. It was a metaphor, a realization, a truth she had to discover within herself and her community. With this newfound wisdom, Elara turned for home. She returned not with a magical artifact, but with a new purpose. She didn't try to magically mend the single broken thread. Instead, she gathered the villagers. She spoke not of magic, but of forgiveness. She encouraged neighbors to share stories, to listen to one another, and to remember their shared history. Inspired by her journey, the villagers began to reweave their own connections. They brought their own threads of kindness, threads of apology, threads of cooperation, and they all began to work on the tapestry together. Children played games that had been forgotten. Elders shared tales that hadn't been told in years. And slowly, the discord faded. The grand tapestry was finally completed. The original thread of unity was gone, but in its place were hundreds of new threads, each one representing a mended friendship, a resolved argument, an act of community. The tapestry was more vibrant, more intricate, and far stronger than before. It was a beautiful testament to a new kind of unity, one born not from ancient magic, but from resilience, shared effort, and the simple, powerful act of coming together. Thank you so much for joining me on this story. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more tales like this. See you next time.